Welcome to the Freely Rooted Mama podcast. Where I am their mother, I make the choice. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Freely Rooted Mama podcast. Today, I'm sharing the birth story of our son, Isaac. So if you are curious at all at what that story looks like or what that journey was for us, or if you're needing a positive birth story to listen to, then this episode is for you. So we gave birth at a birth center we were in California at the time of Isaac's birth. So we did a birth center in Los Gatos and we were going to do a water birth. So that was kind of our plan going into it. And so I guess his birth story really starts. Yeah, it was about 39 weeks. I woke up one morning, I think it was like a Wednesday morning, and water went everywhere. Like I woke up thinking that I was peeing, and then I stood up and water just like kept coming. So I woke up my husband and I was like, oh my gosh, my water broke. Like, holy crap, it's go time. And so we were obviously excited that day. We had an appointment with our midwife. They were excited and they're like, okay, contractions will probably start soon. They gave us the whole 411 on when we needed to call them and what all that looked like. And so we went through all of Wednesday thinking, okay, it's coming, right? Like it's going to start happening. And nothing happened on Wednesday. So Thursday, we went into the midwife again and they're like, okay, well, like, let's start some like more natural ways to help try to induce labor. You know, I'm a very A-type personality. So I'm like, I will do everything. I will do everything to make sure that we can get this labor to get started. So I think Thursday, we had like a clock going with my husband and my doula. Like we were breast pumping one side at a time, 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off, 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. In between that, we were doing homeopathics. We were curb walking like every hour. We were doing hip jiggling like with a towel. We were doing, I'm trying to think of what else we did. I feel like we did everything you could possibly imagine. I know we did everything you could possibly imagine. In fact, that afternoon when contractions still hadn't started, they were like, okay, go ahead and try like doing castor oil and see if that will start it, which I know there's a lot of pros and cons on castor oil and using it for an way of inducing, but oh, that was disgusting. They said mix it with ice cream. We mixed it with pistachio ice cream. Ugh. It's so gross. If I never have pistachio ice cream again, I'll be just fine. And yeah, nothing happened on Thursday. And so I remember Thursday afternoon, I was starting to feel like very anxious, very questioning my own body. And this is a positive birth story, I promise you. But also, this is just the beauty, I think, of birth in general, or motherhood, is that nothing ever goes exactly according to plan. I mean, I'm sure it does occasionally, but that I feel like is the lesson I'm continuing to learn, is that nothing goes to the eighth. And I'm a very type A personality. Nothing ever goes to like my expected plan, which has given me a very good lesson about being more go with the flow and releasing and surrendering and being grateful. But I remember starting to feel anxious because in California, and I don't know if this is true in other states, but in California, you have 72 hours after your water is ruptured to go into labor, or they go into inducing you through like Pitocin or something. And then in California, a midwife can no longer deliver after 72 hours. So I just felt like my whole birth plan was like not happening. So on Friday, when we went in, they were like, okay, you can try a couple more things in the morning, but if nothing happens by morning, and I think we actually ended up coming back Friday afternoon. So we tried more things Friday morning. I think I went to acupuncture. I got adjusted. I was doing brain tapping if you've never seen a brain tap, it's amazing. But I was doing like meditations and brain tapping. I was doing bouncing on the birth ball. I was doing everything. And so by Friday afternoon, when we went in, they were like, okay, we just want you to surrender. We want you to quit stressing, quit trying to find, go by a timetable. Cause I mean, we had it all timed out as to like what we needed to do every like 20 minutes to an hour. They're like, just relax, go home, go do something fun, go take your mind off things. So I think we went shopping and like out to dinner. I said a prayer that night that like, whatever was meant to be would be meant to be. And Saturday morning, I still hadn't gone into labor. So we went into the midwife to talk about where we were going to transfer. And I remember I had like a really good pep talk that morning and with a friend about this is why. Because for me, it was just, it's my beliefs. So again, you may not believe the same things I believe, but I didn't want the interventions. I didn't want to have to defend my opinions to a doctor, especially at this time, especially in California. I didn't want to have to be on guard about my choices that I was making in regards to his labor and what was going to happen right after I gave birth. And so all of that was stressing me out. And I had a really good conversation that morning. And I remember thinking, okay, well, there was a hospital in Santa Cruz that had a birth center wing to it. So I was like, okay, we'll go there because at least it's philosophically a little bit more aligned to what we're wanting. So we talked about that. And then I remember right before we were going to go, I just asked the midwife, I was like, can you just double check? Like they're going to do a cervical exam and they're going to double check anyways when we get there. I would rather before packing the bag, getting in the car, driving all the way to Santa Cruz, going into the hospital, like, can you just check to make sure that my water actually ruptured? And sure enough, she checked and it didn't. Bag was still intact. It was like, yay, we're not going to the hospital because he's not ready to come yet. And also, my husband was like, are you sure? Like, I know you said you didn't pee your pants, but maybe you did pee your pants. And in my head, I'm like, God, I guess I peed my pants. I don't know. There was a lot of liquid, like a lot. So, anyways, fast forward 2 weeks, my doula stayed with us and waited and waited. And it's funny because then we got to 41 weeks and 5 days. And I remember, here we go again. I am going to need to just say a prayer and surrender into whatever is meant to be is meant to be. Because in California as well, you can't, a midwife can't deliver before 39 weeks or after 42 weeks. So we were at 41 and 5 days. I'm like, oh my gosh, Isaac, you have to come out. But again, it was just another good lesson in surrendering. But that night on 41 and 5 days, that night, I remember I went to acupuncture that morning and we went to go like do some errands. And I felt a little different. Like I felt like they weren't Braxton Hicks anymore. They felt a little bit stronger. But, we never know like how long early labor could be. So I'm like, oh, I think like I'm having some contractions, but they were manageable. Like we went on about our day. And the midwife called us that night. I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm having some contractions, but I kind of really know. And she's like, okay, well, you'll know. You call us if they get stronger, if they get closer together, because we were timing them. And I think they were about 6 minutes apart, maybe even longer, maybe 8. And they kind of varied. And she's like, you should probably get some sleep, go rest. So my husband and I got up, we went to go to bed. And like I laid there and then they kind of got uncomfortable. And I'm like, I can't sleep. Like they were uncomfortable enough to where I couldn't like lay down and rest. So I was like, I'm gonna go back out to the living room, finish watching we're total nerds, or at least I'm a total nerd here. We were watching Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban, if you really want to know which one. I was like, I'm just gonna lay on the couch and watch a movie to kind of distract my brain from the uncomfortableness. So we went out for probably, I don't know, maybe another 30 minutes. They felt like they were getting a little closer. We called the midwife again. They're like, okay, well, you can still talk. Like, call us when the intensity increases or that they get closer together. I got up to go to the bathroom and contraction hit me. And they're right. Like, as a first time mom, you're just thinking the whole time, like, is this a contraction? Is this a contraction? It's not like you can Google it. Well, you can Google it, but nobody really tells you how it's going to feel. But trust me, when a contraction hits, it dropped me to my knees and I was like, holy mackerel. I didn't say holy mackerel. I'm pretty sure I had like some like grunting going on at that point. And my husband calls my midwife and my midwife's like, yep, that sounds like it. That happened fast. So I had like a really quick transition between like this early labor phase into like active labor. And she's like, we'll meet you in 30 minutes at the birthing center. So I got in the shower. I labored in the shower because we only lived like 5 minutes to the birth center. So I labored in the shower for like 10 minutes, waiting for us to be able to go because it was like 11:30 p.m. at night. So nobody was at the center. I remember my husband was like packing up the car with all the stuff that we had ready to go, the snacks, the bag, the clothes, the music, like all the stuff that was in our go bag. And my doula is like in the shower trying to squeeze my hips because it hurts. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna go grab my stuff. Justin, like you help get her out of the shower. And I'm like telling my husband, I'm like, okay, I need underwear and I need like all these things. And Justin's like discombobulated. He's like, I don't know where any of this stuff is. And Andrea comes in. She's like, what are you guys doing? And Justin's like, she needs underwear. And Andrea's like, no, she doesn't. Get her in a robe. Let's get in the car. We got to go. And so walk out to my like California neighborhood, basically in a robe. Thank God it was so late at night. So hopefully nobody like, I didn't flash anybody. We drove to the birth center, the longest 5 minutes of my life, because I was having like major contractions in the car. Oh, it was horrible. I was like in the back seat, my doula is squeezing my hips, my husband's trying to get us there as safe as possible. We get to the birth center. I'm like now hanging over the guardrail, like going through active contractions, just wanting to get back into the shower. My student midwife, Charlie, who I've talked about before, shows up and she's like, oh my God. Midwife shows up, luckily, like within 2 minutes of us getting there. We didn't even like close the car completely. Like the trunk was left open. Like we got me in there, we got me in the shower, and they started to fill up the tub. Yeah, I remember I got in the tub and I was like, I'm ready to push. Like it's like we gotta go. I'm ready to push. My husband didn't even have time to change. Like he hopped in the tub and poor guy had to pee so bad. My midwife was finally like, dude, you gotta like take a breath, let him go change, let him go to the bathroom and he'll be back. But I labored in the tub for about 30 minutes, maybe even less. I think grand total time by the time that like first contraction hit where like I like dropped me to my knees to giving birth was probably like an hour and 15. So it was really short and really fast. And yeah, I remember them saying, and my husband was amazing. And my doula was amazing. I mean, my husband squeezed my hips the entire time. His forearms and shoulders got quite the workout. And my doula was amazing, reminding me to breathe and just like making sure I was drinking water and taking deep breaths and cooling my head off. And I remember one of the midwives asked my husband if he wanted to catch Isaac coming out, and he's like, yes. And 5 seconds later, here he came. It was awesome. We did delayed cord clamping. So I just sat and held Isaac in the bathtub for however long. All of that is kind of a blur now. And then my husband cut the cord, and then my husband took him so that I could get out of the bathtub and then go I delivered the placenta out of the bathtub. And so he did skin to skin with my husband while they got me out and on the bed. And then we had like an hour or two with Isaac just laying there and loving him before they did like the newborn exams and stuff like that. It was an incredible birth. The team was amazing. It was such a life lesson, and nothing goes to plan. I mean, we still laugh to this day. Like I had 2 playlists ready to go. We brought the iPad in case we needed to like watch The Office or something to distract like through the contractions. We had everything, like the whole go bag ready to go. And like I said, my husband later was like, "Oh my God, I have to go out to the car and like shut the doors and lock the car." Like cuz we just left everything open. It all happened so fast. So it's just funny. Again, it's just such a lesson that nothing, and I don't say it in a bad way, but nothing went to plan. Like it went to plan as in we wanted to have our birth our way in a tub with our choices, our decisions. And I go back to, I said this on episode number 3, I think, when I went over what to think about in regards to birth. We had the plan of what we wanted to do in regards to circumcision and vitamin K shot and eye ointment, skin to skin. And like, so we had all of that, and all of that got to happen. So I'm so grateful, so blessed that we got to experience all of that part. I just mean in terms of like, holy cow, it came faster than we ever realized. We were like right there at the like tail end of being able to deliver the way we wanted to. But it ended up so perfect and so beautiful. And so for those of you that want to know, obviously we did skin to skin. I wanted no cervical checks. So we did no cervical checks. I wanted, obviously in the tub, we wanted delayed cord clamping. We did not do vitamin K shot. We did not do hepatitis B shot. We did vitamin K orally, and we did not do any eye ointment. We did skin to skin afterwards. I didn't keep the placenta. I almost had the placenta encapsulated, and then just at the time, it came a lot faster. We weren't ready for it. I actually have been debating on whether I want to do that, keep the placenta for my next birth. I didn't really struggle too much with postpartum. I had a couple postpartum like moments of like waves with Isaac, So I don't know if I'll keep the placenta for this next one. I know it's really beneficial, especially if you've had struggles with your hormones in the past. It could be a great way to help balance your hormones. So I do highly recommend it. I just don't know if we're going to do it or not. One of the midwife students at our birth center right now for the birth of our girl does do placenta encapsulation. So we may do it. And again, it's so funny because these are all things that like in nature like happen or in other countries are totally normal. But you come to our country and it's now alternative, or my choices are looked at like, really? You didn't do that or you did this? Anyways, I'm sure we'll get questions on like what we did. So just decided to add that in there. If I'm missing any of the biggies that you have questions on, let me know. I'm trying to think if there's any more like controversial type things that come into play with birth. But just be a strong advocate for yourself. I hope this story lands with you somehow. It was really the best day. The water is so amazing too for pain and helping manage pain. If you're already a person that loves hot water or a bath for relaxation, you really should look into doing a water birth because it's incredible in helping like manage that flow. Highly recommend that. But yeah, just be an advocate for your choices. And if you're type A personality like me, know that sometimes there's something so beautiful and such a lesson to be learned in things maybe not going to plan. That's definitely helped me into motherhood because you can say, oh, yeah, we'll be there at noon. And then, he's napping and you're like, I'm not waking him up from a nap. Looks like we won't be there till 1. And so it's this constant game of flexibility. That is one of the most beautiful things that I continue to keep learning in this process, which is just to be flexible and kind of roll with the punches. Hope you enjoy the birth story of Isaac. And if you have a birth story, I would love to hear it. Share it, type your comments in. That would be great.